everyone, it's Shelby here. Welcome back to A Little Literary Love. I'm glad you all are with me. Before we get into today's video, I do want to just go ahead and say, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. If you like my content, I really appreciate it. But yeah, so today's video is going to be my August mid-month wrap-up. This year has just been flying by. I am slowly coming out of my reading slump. I did a little bit better for the first half of the month. I read 6 books, which was much better compared to what I read in both halves of July. So things are kind of starting to go a little bit better, which is good. So we're just going to get right into the 6 books that I read. The first book is going to be Savage Lover by Sophie Lark. This is the 3rd book of the Brutal Birthright series, and this is a series that I would like to complete this year, along with the Kingmaker series, which is a sequel kind of series after the Brutal Birthright series. This whole series is about these different rival mafia families that all live in Chicago. This book is about Nero, who is one of the sons of the Italian mafia. He is kind of seen as like a playboy, like dangerous kind of guy. But he's very sexy. He likes to race cars and get in trouble. And then we have Camille, who is from a poor background. Her and her father work in an like auto body mechanic shop, and they, like I said, they're pretty poor, and her younger brother gets into a situation where he is caught selling drugs, and to make sure that her brother kind of like doesn't get in trouble because they get caught by the cops, she says that they're her drugs, so the cop makes her be an informant and try to find out where all these drugs are going to be. So in doing so, she ends up continuing to cross paths with Nero, and they kind of start to form like a little bit of a friendship, and then they do end up forming a romance after that. I gave this one 4 stars. I enjoyed this more than I was expecting to enjoy this. Honestly, this one was probably like my least look forward to book of the series, because I don't really like, I didn't have as much interest as Nero as a character, and then we have like literally no background about Camille. She's never come up in any of the books prior to this. But yeah, I do have to say this was like the least mafia-esque book to the series. This was very much more read kind of like an action movie. There's like a heist that ends up happening. There's also some little like racing cars, so it reminded me a little bit of like Fast and the Furious. The steam on this was still high. There are trigger warnings in this book for a family member with a chronic / terminal illness, and then death of a family member, but that takes place in the past, but there is some like scenes like thinking back on the past. So I really enjoyed this. It was pretty good. Then I read Bloody Heart, which was the 4th book of the Brutal Birthright series by Sophie Lark. This one is about Dante, who is the older brother of Nero, so we're still within the Italian family. And this one is very much a second chance romance. When he is younger, like in his early 20s, he ends up meeting this girl off chance because he steals the car that she is in, Simone. And they kind of hit it off, and they start this like secret rendezvous because they are instantly attracted and feel like a connection towards each other. But she is the daughter of a diplomat, and her parents would never want her to be with him, so there's kind of that like Romeo and Juliet forbidden love kind of aspect. But then something happens, and Simone ends up breaking things off with Dante and moving away. And then we fast forward after that, and I think there's been like about 10 years or so that have passed, and they both still pine after each other. And Dante gets a job with like a security company or something to protect his brother-in-law who is an alderman in Chicago, and they're going to be like at this speaking thing about some sort of cause or something. And anyway, so Simone's father is going to be there also speaking, so he gets hired to protect him, and that's how they end up meeting again. So I gave this one 4 stars. This one I was expecting to like a lot more than I did. I did still really like the majority of this. This one was very much an emotional story because of their pining for each other and why she broke up with him. But there were some things that I did not like. I didn't realize this going in, so this does have the secret baby trope, which is part of the reason why she kind of broke up with him. So this might be a little bit spoilery. I'll just put up like a spoiler tag just in case, because it's kind of spoilery. But anyway, so she breaks up with him because she's afraid of, like, she doesn't really want to raise her child in that life. But then later on, she has plenty of opportunity to tell Dante that they have a kid together. She has her child, and she could have told him. And then even when they met up again, there's also lots of opportunities that she could have told him and she didn't. And I really, really, really hate that. The secret baby trope, it works for me in some cases, but those are very few and far between. So in this case, it just didn't really work for me, and it very much bothered me. The steam on this is high, and then there are trigger warnings. Of course, this is a mafia book for violence and kidnapping that happens, so that we have that. Then I read The Professional by Kresley Cole. Boy, oh boy, was this book filthy, and I loved it. It was so good. So this is about our heroine, and she was adopted, and she has been trying to find her birth parents, and she meets this guy one day who tells her that she's basically a mafia princess, and that her father wants to meet her, and that he has been tasked by her father to be her bodyguard, and he is supposed to bring her back to Russia to meet her father. So, but in doing so, they have an immediate sexual attraction to each other, and they start doing some things. And like I said, this book is utterly filthy. This is probably one of the dirtiest books that I have read, and it was great. So I give this 4.5 stars. This would have been a 5-star, but there were like a few things that I didn't really care for. Namely, like, it took a really long time for the hero of the story to kind of give in to them being in a relationship, just because he felt like her father, he kind of sees him as like a pseudo father for him, and he kind of sees that them getting together is betraying her father's trust, and he doesn't want to do that. He just feels like it's very taboo. And then there was a lot of times where he was not opening up to our heroine, and he was keeping a lot of secrets from her. So she got really frustrated for this, and I completely agree with her frustration. I was getting very frustrated too. But overall, I did really enjoy this. The steam on this, like I said, very high. There are trigger warnings for death because somebody dies. But yeah, so there's this one. Then I read the second book of the series. This is The Master. This is about the hero from the first book, his younger brother, which I think all of the books of the series are about the 3 brothers. So this one, this brother is a mafia, like, I think he's either like a politician or a businessman or something, and he hires escorts, and he is in, I believe, Miami, and he hires an escort, and he has a type. He always wants like skinny blondes. But then we have our heroine of the story, Katerina, and she is needing a lot of money. Well, not a lot, but she's just needing money. And she works as a housekeeper, and one of the women that she cleans house for happens to be an escort, and they kind of befriend each other. And she suggests like, hey, why don't you take this job that I got, and pose as me and go see him. So she is I don't know if she's Puerto Rican but she's definitely a Latin woman. So obviously not his type. And she comes, and he immediately is like pissed off and wants her to leave, but then she like kind of coaxes him, and they end up doing the dirty, and then he becomes obsessed with her and wants only her and wants her all the time. This one I didn't like as much as the first one. I gave this one 4 stars, but I still did really enjoy this one. The steam on this was still very, very high. This also has this aspect though of it that I didn't really care for, because she is running from her husband or ex-husband who only married her to get her money and is wanting to find her to kill her. So she's on the run from him. And she was totally keeping that secret from him. She wasn't letting him know about all this extra stuff in her life that was going on, which just kind of annoyed me. But otherwise, this one was really good. Then I read Midnight Mass by Simone. This is a reread for me. This is kind of a novella in between Priest and Sinner of the Priest series. This is about Tyler and Poppy, who were the characters from Priest, and this is after they've gotten married, and he is going to school to get his PhD. And they're kind of struggling a little bit in their marriage because he's never home to spend time with her, and she is opening up like an art gallery, and they're just having some struggles in this one, and it's them trying to come back together as a couple and be there for each other. So I gave this one 4 stars. This one is probably one of my least favorites of the whole series, even, you know, it's just like a little novella. This one could be skipped if you wanted to. This does bring the steam, obviously, with all Simone books. It's very, very high. It's also very emotional. There are trigger warnings in this, but the trigger warnings are kind of spoilery, so I will put up a spoiler kind of thing if you want to skip over that. So the spoiler or the trigger warning for this is a miscarriage. Poppy does suffer a miscarriage, and it's very traumatic for her and him. So if that is triggering for you, just know that you may end up wanting to skip this one, which is totally okay. I think this one, like I said, if you wanted to, you could totally skip this. Then the last book that I read for the first half of August is going to be Fighting Destiny by Amelia Hutchins. This is the first book in the Fae Chronicles. I picked this one up because I have had so many people recommend Amelia Hutchins to me, that she's a great fantasy romance writer and writes very high steam books. So this is about a witch, and she gets tasked with stealing something from a Fae prince. So in this task of her stealing this, whatever it was, I can't even remember, from this Fae prince, then that was actually like a test, because they want to use her to impersonate the princess that he is engaged to marry, because something else is going on, and there's like threats against her life, but then there's also a lot of like these supernatural like murders that have been going on in the supernatural community that they are trying to solve. I gave this 3 stars. I was very disappointed in this just because I had heard so many good things about this author, but this was just a lot. There was way too many elements in this story. Like, it just kind of felt like the author had all these different ideas for a cool like Fae type romance, and she threw all of them into this one book, and it just felt like there were so many like loose ends, and it just felt like a lot of that stuff was unnecessary. And I really just wish she would have picked like one element, like just like the heist element, or the murders and not just done everything all together. And then this, unfortunately, which may not be the worst thing, because this is the first book in a series where this couple is going to continue on in the series. It's not like this is a one and done. These two characters get their HEA and then the next book is about two different characters. No, this stays with these two characters. So their romance will, I feel like, be developing more, but in this first book I just felt like the romance was not believable at all. It's basically solely just lust, and I had some issues with it. So the Fae how they get their like powers and energy is they feed off of sexual energy. So the Fae prince in this keeps threatening her that he's going to like do things against her will, like sexual wise, and I just really didn't care for that. Even though when they do some like sexual things, like they're really like steamy, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I didn't really care for that. So I would consider this to be like steam wise like medium high steam. There are trigger warnings for violence and murder, especially when they go visit the murder scenes of these supernatural creatures. They are pretty gruesome and bloody, so there are trigger warnings for that. But yeah, so I don't plan on continuing this series. This is just not really for me, but I do want to try out another Amelia Hutchins book just to kind of see, like, maybe this isn't, I think this is an older series, so maybe she wrote things a little bit better in some other series that I've heard some good things about, so I want to try some of those, and if I don't like those, then I think I'm done with Amelia Hutchins. So yeah, so there we go. Those are going to be all the books that I read for the first half of August. Let me know down below some of the books that you've been reading in August. If you like this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up, and like I said, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. If you like my content, I really appreciate it. Otherwise, I will see you all in the next one. Bye guys!